Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar on Is Being a Virtual Assistant for You? I'm Bob Hogan, the webinar coordinator today and the business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County. I'm going to be your host today, and our presenter is Belinda Sandor. More on Belinda in just a minute. But first, some brief information on SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit national partner of the SBA with over 10,000 volunteers nationally, and locally here in SCORE Fairfield County, we have over 120 volunteers with a wide range of industry process and subject matter expertise. We offer three primary value-added services to small business owners. First of all, we offer free one-on-one business counseling, and you can access that in whatever way is convenient to you, in person, face-to-face, by Zoom, telephone, email, whatever works best for you. And you can do that by using the yellow bit.ly link that you see on the screen, or you can go to our website and click on Request a Mentor. Secondly, we offer educational workshops and webinars like the one today, over 100 throughout the year. And lastly, we offer extensive resources on our website, including business tools and information. Our next webinar will be next Tuesday, July 29th at noon, when Ashwini Bhaskar will be presenting Introduction to Entrepreneurship and SCORE, and you can find more specifics on our website. We also have a large number of recorded webinars on our website that cover a wide range of business topics, and you can view those at any time just by clicking on demand webinars when you're on our website. Just some logistics about today's webinar. We have set aside time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button at any time during the webinar. It's located generally at the lower part of your screen, and Belinda will take as many as we can up until the top of the hour. We will end our webinar sharply at 1 o'clock to respect our time. If the session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be available on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org, within the next day or so. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon, Belinda Sandor. Belinda is the founder of the VA Connection, a professional online community where she coaches and mentors virtual assistants to have a thriving business worldwide. Belinda is a sought-after speaker on small business growth, business technology, brand communication and development, and more. Groups who engage her as a speaker benefit from her ability to clearly explain how, when, and why technology and marketing can be smoothly incorporated into their daily workflow. Belinda, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Bob. Thank you. All right, everybody. So you are here probably because you've heard about this thing called virtual assistants, and you're thinking, is this for me? And, I know some of you are here because you're trying to figure out your next chapter. You're not sure what your next step might be. Let me just adjust my camera a minute. So this is pretty funny. So what you're seeing right now is the Wizard of Oz. And what I mean by that is I moved into a farmhouse. It's from 1880 and the walls are a mess. So I have a piece of blue paper behind me. So let me just adjust my camera so that it will be less distracting. One moment, and then we're going to dive into this. All right, so let's see if this helps. There we go. All right, that's better. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, so working from home sounds great, right? Working from home sounds great, and I certainly love doing it. And maybe a friend or a spouse has said to you, virtual assistants could be your perfect next step. And I wonder if some of you have been Googling, and I'd love to hear in the chat, have you been Googling, work from home? Because if you are, you're not alone. You're absolutely not alone. And I imagine that you've probably found a lot of conflicting information, right? You hear, how to get started, how much to charge, where to get clients, and it's probably causing a lot of confusion, and you have a lot of questions. And so today my goal is to boil this down to give you some solid next steps. And I would love to answer your questions along the way. So let me just pull up the Q&A here so I can see it. And please, any question you have along the way, I want you to just dive right in, and we'll tackle it. Okay. So I want to give you a little bit of background. So this is me and my daughter, Emily, back in 2010. My life was a mess. I had a failed business. I was going through a divorce, drowning in debt, and I was sliding into my 50th birthday. And I was worried not only about my future, but I was also trying to figure out how I was going to take care of my daughter. And just before Emily was born, I was successfully working in corporate. I was making six figures, but I desperately wanted to work from home. And it was just pulling at me, it was just pulling at me. And so 4 months after she was born, I was laid off and I decided to give entrepreneurship a shot. So I opened an online baby gift boutique. I had a ton of excitement, no experience, and I tried to do it all on my own. And it was a disaster. And so now instead of making six figures, I was six figures in debt. And I had to sell my home and I had to start taking a really hard look at my choices. And so I was really determined to find work. I put in hours and hours of time revamping my LinkedIn profile, reaching out to employment agencies. And even though I didn't want to work, I didn't want to go to the office. It was I thought the fastest way to get the ball rolling. So I connected with former colleagues, but there were no job offers in sight. And I had unpaid taxes. I mean, it was just, it couldn't have been a more perfect storm. And the thing is that I felt invisible and powerless. And I don't know if any of you have felt that way before, but it's not a good place to be. So not knowing what to do, I decided to start temping. I went back to my roots. I was a secretary in the 80s and 90s, back in the dark ages, and I found temp assignments pretty easily. And I love the work, right? I love helping people. But the thing is I wasn't making enough money for us to live, because I had to share a chunk of the revenue of my earnings with the agency that was placing me, right? That's part of the deal. And I'm still not working from home, which was really the overarching goal. So then I'm standing at the bus stop one morning and with Emily and the dads. The dads were always there in the morning. And I nervously shared my big idea, of doing admin work for entrepreneurs, and with one of the dads. And his entire face changed. I had no idea that he had started a business a couple months before. He was drowning in administrative details, and he hired me. He hired me. We had a brief coffee chat, and I started working with him right away. And so, I was helping someone, I was getting paid, and I was able to start to work from home. And I decided to keep pushing forward with this idea. And my second client I met in the buffet line, of a wedding. We chatted. I told him about my business. He gave me his card. I didn't have a card yet. I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything, but I connected with him on LinkedIn. And a few weeks later, he contacted me and he asked me for help with the project. And he was hosting an in-person meeting and he needed help getting organized. So this is back in 2010. And after that meeting was over, he asked me if I could help him do webinars online. And I had no idea how to do that. And I told him, and he just said, "Would you mind figuring it out for me?" And I thought, okay, hold on. So you're going to pay me to figure something out that I don't know how to do. So I'm going to get paid to learn, which I love to do. And I thought, this is amazing. This is amazing. So I hired a coach. I worked with him for over a year to understand how to run a business. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. There were so many processes to figure out, and so many details. And although I had plenty of setbacks, I really leaned into it and I tried different pricing models. I tried different ways to organize my client work. I tried to learn how to expand my skills. And I also learned the value of consistency and perseverance. And those are two things that you really need to start a business, is consistency and perseverance. And it paid off, because in the first year of my business, I made $70,000. And in my next 12 years in business as a virtual assistant working from home, I made $100,000 every single year. And in my third year of business, I met my now husband, Greg, who lived 164 miles away from me in Fairfield County. That's how I got to Fairfield County. And so this is us on our wedding day with our kids. And so at that point, I moved all my applications to the cloud, which is a total game changer, and started calling myself fully a virtual assistant. And because of the systems I put in place and the marketing machine that I built, and the help of my coach, I was able to start to see a ripple effect, and my business really took off. And I've built 20,000 hours, believe it or not, as a virtual assistant, and made more than $1 million working from home. And I'm here to tell you that virtual assistants changed everything for me and my family. It gave me a purpose. It gave me an outlet to help people to do work I love, make consistent income. And in 2019, I decided to help other women and men change the direction of their lives by leading them to become virtual assistants too. Because by then I had a roadmap, I had strategies and processes. And now at the VA Connection, I teach people how to be virtual assistants. And we have an online Facebook community. It's called the Virtual Assistant Connection. We're just about to hit 60,000 community members, and we are represented in 47 countries. So I hope you'll join me over there. All right. So April says, with the emergence of AI, how can we market our skills to gain clients? So that can mean a couple different things. So I can take a stab at this, April, okay? But let me know if I'm off track. So I don't believe AI. So here's the thing. Let me just boil it down for you. How you get clients is relationship. AI is not going to help you automate getting clients. So I believe AI is a tool that we will use, just like when I started, we had a typewriter. Now we have a computer. Now you can run the world on your phone. Those are tools. And I don't believe that AI will replace virtual assistants at all, but I do believe that virtual assistants who know how to use AI will be in a better position. All right, it's going to take a while for that to catch up, but it'll eventually get there. Okay, good. And bring the questions. Okay. And then this is just an update here. So I recently, well, it's not that recent anymore, about a year and a half ago, moved to Virginia with my husband. And this is the day we closed on this farmhouse. And this was a dream. This was a dream. And virtual assistants helped make this happen. So we live in Matthews, Virginia, near the Chesapeake Bay. We have 27 chickens. We have this farmhouse and 21 acres. And I couldn't be happier. And I can really work from anywhere. And that has a virtual assistants has a huge part in that. Okay, so I want to start off with what is a virtual assistant? And I want to start here because a lot of people are new to this and they have it can be misunderstood and people make assumptions about what being a virtual assistant is. So a virtual assistant provides administrative, technical, or creative assistance to clients, but instead of working full-time for one person or organization, they work virtually, usually from home, providing these same types of services to a range of clients. So this is really very broad, okay? So you can do these, you can provide these services in any combination that you want. It's not like a job where you have to stay in a certain lane. And if you have a lot of experience in a certain field like HR, you don't have to be an HR VA. You can do anything you want. Your resume is out the window. Okay, it's literally out the window, and you can create this any way that you want. All right, and so this is very broad, right? It's very broad, and some of you have read on the internet. I'm quite sure that if you want to be a VA, you're only going to be able to make the big bucks if you're very technical, know a lot of programs, or certain hard to use programs. And you also may have heard that you need to be a social media expert. Have to know how to sell things online, products or courses, and none of that is true. 100%, none of that is true. You can provide creative services in the way of graphics. You can be administrative and offer general office support. You can be technical and build websites, and you really can do this in any combination that you want. All right. And you get to decide how much you work, how much you'll get paid, and where you'll work. And it's funny because a lot of people, that's why they want to be a virtual assistant, because they want control of those things. And the interesting thing is that's what people struggle with the most, is that they have to decide. It's a lot easier to have a job and have the boss say, you're going to make $60,000, you'll be here 9 to 5, and here's your stack of stuff. Right? When we're guiding ourselves, this is the thing that entrepreneurs struggle with the most. So it's kind of ironic. So just know that going in. Now, I know some of you are worried that the market's saturated, that you're going to have to compete with people from overseas, and none of that is true either. Now, here's some interesting stats. All right. So according to Business Research Insights, the global VA market size was $2.5 billion in 2021. And it's going to touch $8.5 billion in 2028. 92% Insidia reports that 92% of virtual assistants report high satisfaction with the flexibility of their work. And virtual assistants are really in high demand because the cost of the savings, and I'm going to introduce you to one of my clients in a couple of minutes and explain how our relationship works, but they don't have to provide office space, equipment, anything like that. And this is a very smart choice for many people who want to work from home. So virtual assistants, we tend to have a personality type, 100%. We're helpers, we're givers, we're problem solvers. That's a big part of it. We're curious, and we also love to learn. And I'd love to hear in the chat if this is you, if this is something that resonates with you. So JA is asking the question, is there competition from AI? Are clients willing to pay for a VA in light of prevalence of AI? 100%. It's not taking jobs away. AI is not taking jobs away from virtual assistants. Now, it is a tool and it's making things easier. So let me give you an example. Okay. So I had a transcript, and I just want to think of a good example. I had a transcript, and it was one giant block of text. So I put it in AI and I said, please make this into sentences and paragraphs. AI did that. So someone would ask their virtual assistant, would you please take all of my transcripts and put them into AI and turn them into paragraphs, right? And then you have to read it and you have to make sure that it's accurate. AI is not a set it and forget it. I use AI all day long, and I have to say that frequently comes up with information that's not true. I will give it a document and say, there's a testimonial from Leanne in this document. Would you please pull it out? And it pulls out complete gibberish. So AI is not there, first of all. And second of all, people need other people to help them think things through. So it's going to be a tool, and it's going to reduce the number of hours that we spend as a VA doing things that AI can do, but there's plenty of things that AI can't do. All right, so you don't have to worry about that. But I would embrace it. I would embrace it for sure. Okay, so all right, Ruby, I see your question. I'm going to keep going, and we'll come back to that because I think I'm going to answer that a little bit. Okay, so all right. So before we do that, so Ruby's asking, how do I find a client when I don't have experience? So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. Now I want to have a heart to heart with you. All right, because if you're here, you probably have an entrepreneurial brain. A lot of us have ADHD. I have ADHD. It's not uncommon. And you might also call it shiny object syndrome. All right. And I want to talk about what that looks like. Okay. So here you are over here on the left, right? You are here, and this is where you want to be. And a lot of us try an Etsy store. We try multi-level marketing. We try a new job. We sell essential oils. We go back to school, for fill in the blank. And then in the middle of that, we're battling imposter syndrome, the mindset meteor field, all of that stuff. And the problem is that we put so much pressure on ourselves to pick the one thing that, okay, listen carefully, that everyone else will think is the smartest thing we have done, instead of looking inside us at what matters to us and what we'd like to have in our lives. So we stay where we are, and we have all of these loose ends. And I'd love to hear if any of you have experienced this, right? And here's the other part that you need to know. A lot of entrepreneurs, beginning entrepreneurs, they think there's a way to get rich quick. And that if we're not getting rich quick, we must be doing something wrong. And there's not. And being a VA, or an entrepreneur for that matter, is not how you get rich quick. You have to put in the work, you have to put in the reps, and you have to stop looking for the quick fix, right? And this is really good news, because if we accept it and we embrace consistency and perseverance, we will get where we want to go, okay? But when we keep looking for the quick hit, we waste time. And I do believe that virtual assistance is the most direct route to consistently making money working from home if you go about it correctly. So if this is you, You do need to settle in on one business and get down to work. Okay. So there's some questions here that I want you to consider before becoming a virtual assistant. Okay. So are you ready to work for yourself? What do I need to do to get started? What do VAs do for clients? How much money can I earn? Can I work part-time? And who hires virtual assistants? So I'm going to go through those, and I also want you to put your questions in the chat, and I'll answer those. Okay. So are you ready to work for yourself? So with being a business owner and working on your own, it comes with responsibilities. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the good news is that you're the boss. The bad news is you're the boss, right? So you decide when you work, you decide who you'll work with, you decide how much you'll earn. You need to track the money you earn. You'll need to track the time that you work. You'll be responsible for finding clients. And to be successful, you will need to be self-guided, right? You're going to need to be able to get yourself to your desk, and you're going to need to bring determination and focus. Being a business owner is a lot of work, and it's also a lot of fun. And your job is to make sure you're focusing on the right things. Now, I want to talk about risk for a minute because I used to think that having a job was safe until I got laid off, right? And then I realized having a job actually has something that I refer to as a single point of failure, right? And what that means is one person one day can decide to lay you off and you're done, right? And I'm sure this has happened to some of you. But when you have clients, if one leaves, it's no big deal. Two leave, you're still okay. And that's because as a business owner, you're going to make sure that you have plenty of clients coming to you. And when this happens, you are self-reliant. And this seems a lot less risky, I think, when you think about it this way versus having a job. Okay. So let me know if that resonates with you. Now, what you need to get started is you need a dedicated place to work. It doesn't have to be big, but it's going to be a big waste of time if you have to keep setting up and putting your things away. You definitely need a computer. All right, you need a computer. You need a phone, and you really don't need much else. You cannot do this business on a tablet or a phone alone. You will need a computer. You're going to need to be able to talk about your work in a way that people understand what you do and to be able to remember it. Okay. And I teach my students a script. So the script is, I'll just give you the shortcut. Okay. So when I introduce myself to someone, what I say is I'm a virtual assistant. My business is called Rocket Girl Solutions, and I work with entrepreneurs and I help them with all of the admin pieces of their work, like email newsletters, website updates, and PowerPoint presentations. And then I stop talking. Our tendency when we are new or when we don't have a succinct script is to blather on and confuse people, right? So you'll need to be able to speak very clearly about what you do. You're also going to need to be crystal clear about how you get paid. Very important, because think about it, if you went into someone's business, like say you were hiring an attorney who is also a service provider, just like a virtual assistant, and they weren't clear about their pricing, or they were started asking you questions about your budget, like you would feel like you couldn't trust them, right? So you need to be very clear about talking about your pricing, because you don't want them to think there's room for negotiation, right? And so you also don't need certifications. You don't need to take a million tech courses or a Windows class. You don't need to do any of that. I am quite certain you have the skills. Skills are not the issue. It's knowing how to run a business. All right, that's where people get in trouble. So here's a list of some of the services you can offer to clients right now. Now, the first one, create a PDF. You're probably saying to yourself, what is she talking about? Clients will pay you to create a PDF. They'll pay you to schedule appointments, monitor their email inbox, to do research, to send invoices, and bill paying. They will 100% do that, pay you for that. And you'll notice that many of these tasks are skills that you already have, or you could learn with a quick Google search, right? And yes, there are going to be clients who want high-tech skills, but you can learn those over time if you're interested. Now, I did a quick Google search, and this is what I came up with in response to the question, What are 80% of the tasks that virtual assistants do? So let me just read this, okay? The majority of tasks virtual assistants perform fall under the category of administrative support, including calendar management, email filtering, appointment scheduling, data entry, document organization, travel arrangements, basic bookkeeping, taking meeting minutes, managing social media accounts, and responding to customer service inquiries. Essentially, handling repetitive, time-consuming tasks that allow their clients to focus on their core business activities. Okay? Simple, simple, simple. Now, I want to introduce you to Bob. Okay? So this is a real-time example. So Bob had a successful career in New York City. He was an executive working at an ad agency. Nicest guy ever. He retires and he wants to start his own business as a consultant. And he needs administrative help. He doesn't need someone full time, but he doesn't want someone to come to his home, but he needs assistance. So I know his web developer who introduced us. So his web developer reaches out to me. He says, "Would you like to meet Bob? He needs a virtual assistant." I say, "Yes, absolutely." Bob hires me. We work together for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. We've never met in person. It wasn't until 2020 that I actually was in a Zoom room with him and talked to him face to face. Everything else before that was on the phone. He needed me to schedule appointments for him. He needed me to reserve hotel rooms. He needed me to order lunch from Panera in New York when he had a group meeting and have it delivered. He asked me to copy and paste articles he'd written into his newsletter software and send them to his email list. He asked me to buy chocolate and send thank you notes to panelists who spoke on a webinar he hosted. He asked me to set up email addresses for his colleagues when he expanded his business, and he paid me $90 an hour to do this. Now, he started with a few hours a month, and for the last 5 years before Bob sold his consulting business, he paid me between $17,000 and $20,000 a year, which is about 20% of my total revenue of $100,000. Now, people like Bob are starting businesses all the time and they need help. Now, what drew Bob to me was that I was in business just like him. I wasn't acting as someone's helper. I had established pricing. I had established how I got paid. I had an operating system in place to onboard him as a client, organize his work, communicate with him in a way that instilled confidence and trust, right? And I had a business in place. All right. And so when you do this, when you treat this like a business, a client relationship can be worth this much. My largest client relationship was worth $30,000 a year. And then I had another one that was worth about $22,000 a year. And then I had lots of other smaller clients at the same time. All right. So I want to tell you about a resource that there's actually 5 resources. If you go over to the VA Connection, don't go now. If you go over to the VA Connection, you'll see at the very top, there is a guide. I have it right here. It's called How to Start Your Own Virtual Assistant Business. It's right at the header at the top. And if you scroll down, you will see 4 other resources. And one of them will be the Ultimate Virtual Assistant Task List. So you can download this. There's over 130 services you can offer to clients. And keep in mind, it doesn't matter if you've never worked in an office. You can have a background as a school teacher, a healthcare worker, retail, a restaurant, or be a bartender. Really, you can have a background in anything and be successful as a VA. So how much money can I earn? All right. So this actually gets down to how confident are you? Because it depends on skills, but more than that, it depends on confidence. So when I started out 15 years ago, I was at $50 an hour. I was making $100,000 in my job when I was laid off, and I figured my brain and experience were worth $50. So I started with that. I had no trouble getting clients because I could confidently say my price and talk about my work. And I raised that over time, and my current clients pay me $90 an hour, and I've been charging that since 2016 with 35 to 37 billable hours per week. So I'm getting paid 35 to 37 hours a week. And you don't need to pay your dues. A lot of people say, oh, my business isn't really taking off. I know I need to pay my dues. You don't. There are no dues to pay, right? And if you're thinking that you could never start out charging $50 an hour, that's okay. You can raise your rates over time, but I do not recommend it starting at anything lower than 30, because what's going to happen is you're going to have more clients than you can handle, and you're not going to have time to work on your business and raise those rates and do what you need to do. Okay, so don't start out lower than $30 an hour. And I want to introduce you to Carrie McWhorter. So she's a graduate of my program. It's called VA School. And before joining VA School in 2022, Carrie homeschooled her children. She was a caregiver to her mother-in-law. She never worked a full-time job outside the home, and she lives in rural Iowa with her husband. She jumped into my program, VA School, with both feet. She got an accountability partner, and she started implementing what she learned, and she launched her business in 2022 and reached her goal of 15 to 20 billable hours. And so working part-time, Carrie now consistently earns $5,000 a month, working 15 to 20 hours a week. She has had 46 clients so far. She's currently working with 27 of them, which might sound like, oh my gosh, how can she do that? But clients need her different amounts, right? That's the thing. It's very fluid. One client might need you 5 hours a week. Another client might need you, an hour a month for 5 months. When she first started out, she was at $30 an hour. $35 an hour. And then by working through the program, she's currently at $65 an hour. And she had her first $5,000 month. And recently, I think I talked to her last week. She had her biggest month ever. I don't remember the number, but it was more than $5,000. And you can check out her website, allinorderwithcarrie.com, and you can see what she offers, her services, all the things. And you can see her pricing and her testimonials to see this in action. So a lot of people wonder if they can work part-time. You absolutely can. In fact, I would say the majority of my the majority of my students do work part-time because they want the flexibility. I went in full-time. I wanted a full-time income, but you just need to consider the types of work. So for example, if a client wants you to monitor their email inbox, that would traditionally be done during traditional work hours. And so that probably wouldn't be a good fit for someone who is working part-time or scheduling meetings. That needs to happen during the workday. But if you're formatting a PowerPoint presentation or updating their website or doing something that doesn't have to be at a specific time or during the day, you absolutely can. You absolutely can. A lot of my students, I've noticed, take Fridays off, and that's a great thing to do as well. So you'll need to set the expectations with the clients of when you'll be available, and you'll need to set a consistent schedule so they know when they'll hear from you. But it's not difficult at all to work part-time. So who hires virtual assistants? So authors, financial planners, coaches, consultants, recruiters, real estate agents, online course creators, lots and lots of people hire virtual assistants. All right, and so many VAs think that having a successful business is about knowing how to do the client work. That's a very small part of it. The real success stories come when you know how to run your business, how to market it, how to price your services, and how to talk about your work. And I want you to think about this in terms of like baking a cake. So there's four key ingredients, and I'm going to talk about each one of them. And um, I'd love for you to really dive in with your questions here because this is where it's going to get juicy, okay? So the first one is client attraction. So you need to build a system that brings clients to you. Now, in my career, I brought on 1 to 3 new clients every single month. So you're going to do this in a number of ways. You're going to reach out. So this answers Ruby's question. How do I get a client when I don't have experience, and where can I get a client? All right. So what you're going to want to do is to reach out to everyone you know. And I have And when I started my business, I absolutely did that. I made a list and I got the email address of everyone that I know, and I told them about my business. I sent an email out. Hi, I'm excited to announce I've started a virtual assistant business. It's called Rocket Girl Solutions. You can check out my website, and I let everybody that I know, that I knew, know. And then what I did from there is I started networking. So I started to broaden the people that I know, and I know there are probably, if you're interested in being a VA, VAs tend to, they not always, but they tend to be introverts. I am definitely an introvert. And so we think networking, what are you talking about? In fact, I quit a really good paying job when I got promoted and they wanted me to network. So if that's you, there are ways to do it. And on the homepage of the VA Connection, there is one of the guides that's there. It's called, I think it's called Networking Secrets for Introverts, something like that. You'll see it. And I walk through everything that you need to do at a networking event, what you do afterward, step by step, so that you can be successful at this. So you really do need to spread the word. And the way that we talk about your business, I call that the referral formula. So I'll say it again. When you're at a networking event, or you run into your friend in the grocery store and she says, "What's new?" And you say, "Oh, I started a business as a virtual assistant. I'm going to work with entrepreneurs and help them with all the admin pieces of their work, like email newsletters, website updates, and PowerPoint presentations." And then you stop talking and you have a conversation about it. So what you want to do is you want every single person that you know to know what you're up to, and they will help you spread the word. All right. They will help you spread the word. Um, all right. So any questions about that? Now you want to build a system for doing this, and I teach this in my program, VA School. And the reason you're going to want to build a system is you're not going to want to wake up every morning and say, "Oh, how do I stay in touch with my people?" You're going to want to have a spreadsheet with all of their names, and you're going to want to reach out to them systematically. And the other thing that I recommend highly is to have an email newsletter. And really, no matter what your business is, if you're a service provider, I would absolutely do that, even if you're, selling window washing, because you want to stay top of mind with the people that you know. All right. So that's client attraction. That's client attraction. Very important. The second piece is pricing and packaging. Now, you're going to need to develop a clear and compelling way to talk about your pricing. Now, I just want to answer the question. I can't pronounce your name, Jazine, I think. For contracts, do you recommend ad hoc pricing where clients pay monthly, and any of the two parties can choose to stop working after the paid month, or do you recommend having a contract last for at least 3 months or even a year? Okay, so I am going to blow that out of the water. Okay, so I do not have contracts. I found out at a very young age that you can have a contract, but in order to enforce it, you have to hire an attorney and you have to go to court. And I didn't want to do that in my business. So my systems are all designed to be simple and to have the least amount of resistance. All right, the least amount of resistance. So here's how my pricing works. People prepaid my time in 5 or 10 hour chunks. I called it a debit card, right? So it's kind of like a retainer. 5 hours was $100 an hour or $500. 10 hours was $900 or $90 an hour. People can use the time in any increment that they like. Some clients bought a debit card every 2 weeks, some bought two a year. So they can really come in and use you anytime they'd like. Now, I want to tell you why I decided to do this, and I 100% want you to work hourly. People say, I'm leaving money on the table by working hourly, I'll get faster, and then I won't make as much. That's what happens is you will make more because you haven't overcomplicated it. So let's talk about some examples. So in the beginning, I had a project flat rate pricing. All right. So there was a letter of agreement, what I was going to do, The client described the work. I have to actually do a little work ahead of time to understand what it is so I can choose a price. I write this all up. I provide them with the proposal. Now I have to wait while they decide if they want to hire me, and I've already done work, and that's making me mad, right? Because like seriously, I'm doing work and now I'm holding my breath. So I stopped doing that. Then I decided to do project-based work based on, so I would offer like a product, like I would set up their email newsletter, came up with a flat rate for that. I thought I've done this a million times. I'm smart. I know how long it takes. And then I realized that some people it took 3 hours, but some people it took 10. So now I'm kind of working for free and I don't like that either. So so then I decided I was going to go with retainers. I saw a lot of virtual assistants going with retainers. And so what I decided to do was I was going to charge my clients for 5 hours a month. They would pay me upfront. I thought this is the smartest thing I ever thought of because now I'm going to have regular cash flow. And if they use more, I'll bill them at the end of the month and charge them for 5 more. But what happened was the second month, everyone didn't use all their time. So they asked me, why are you billing me for 5 more hours? I didn't use the first 5. So I had to think about that. Now, let me give you one more example of pricing. This is so important. This is so important. So I hired a VA to help me with a project, and she had a 10-hour minimum a month. She was $40 an hour, very reasonable. The first month, I was so busy, I couldn't figure out like how to give her 10 hours worth of work. Like I was just swamped. The second month, and I thought, okay, fine. The second month, something similar happened. I left 2 hours on the table. And the third month, I let her go because all of a sudden she was becoming a job for me to fill my 10 hours. So she wasn't helping me. I was trying to come up with a way to use her time. So I don't mind spending money. I don't like wasting money. And so by doing it the way that I decided from learning what I did, clients love the debit card system. They love it. In fact, there's a whole course that I teach specifically on how to set that up. So you'll want to stay away from contracts, and I think you're also going to want to charge by the hour and always get paid upfront. Okay. Good. And so Christy says, what is the name of your operating system that you referenced for clients? Can you say a little bit more? I don't remember exactly what I said about that. Tell me a little bit more. I don't have a specific operating system. I mean, I have processes and procedures that I put in place. Um, so yeah, Christy, tell me a little bit more about that, and I'm happy to answer. Okay, good. And keep the questions coming. All right. Now, ingredient number 3. All right, and let me know if there's any questions about the pricing. I know I'm talking fast, but that's a really important one. And a lot of times people are going to try to talk you out of hourly. Don't let them do that. Don't let them do that. I had a lot of colleagues, saying to me, "Oh no, that's not a good idea." And they thought that it cheapened my work by charging by the hour, but it really did not. It really did not at all. And I get paid for every minute. And so let me tell you one more thing about that. So if you have a contract, let's say you're going to do 10 social media posts for a client every week and you're going to charge them $100. I'm making this up, okay? And then all of a sudden they have a special event and they want you to do 3 more. Now I have to talk about money again, right? I have to go back, I have to renegotiate, or I do it for free, which is what most VAs do. They're like, okay, the client's taking advantage of me when they're not. It's just your job to bring the money up again. So when you charge by the hour and people pay up front, you just use a little bit more time and you can expand without having another money conversation. Okay, good. Now, the third ingredient is the VA business skills and strategy. So a lot of you will think that tech is your biggest hurdle, understanding how to run a business, but it's really how to run a business, right? Because, people will undercharge, they won't charge for all their time. They won't understand how to get clients. They won't understand how to manage the workflow. All of those things get in the way. So, oh, this is what you're talking about, Christy. Is this what you're talking about? Number 4, the operating system. Maybe that's what you mean. And so it's really all about following and setting up processes for onboarding clients and for providing work for them and for letting them know how much time they have on their debit card, things like that. Okay, good. And now let's talk about the operating system. So number 4 is very important. You need systems in place to run your business. So for example, you need a way to take notes. You need a way to organize your files. You need a way to track your time. You need to have something in place to organize your work, some project management software or ways to streamline things. Again, it's really all about running a business, and uh, and that's what we have to keep in mind. That's what keeps us. That's what elevates us and allows us to charge what we want. Okay. All right, so we can jump into Q&A now. I'm happy to do that. Also happy to let you know that I'm going to have a 3 free day training. It's going to start on September 4th, and you can sign up with the QR code here, or go to the VA Business Launchpad and get yourself on the wait list. And this course is going to be specifically and in depth all about the 4 ingredients that you need to run your VA business successfully. All right, so let's have some Q&A. What's on your mind?
Belinda, I've asked them to put their questions into the Q&A, but there's a couple in the chat.
Oh,
Maybe
oh, got it.
I'll just tee up for you. Felicia was asking, do you get a chance to take a vacation?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can do that in a number of ways. Some virtual assistants really like to travel, and so they travel and work at the same time. So they might get up in the morning, do 3 hours of work, and then go to the beach. You can absolutely do that. When I take a vacation, I just let my clients know and we plan ahead, just, similarly to if you're taking a vacation and you have a job. Clients want you to be refreshed. They want you to take vacations. You can also, I've had circumstances where I brought another VA in and they've taken over some of my projects when it was time sensitive and I was on vacation. So you can do that as well.
And there's one from Joannie who's asking, by not choosing to use contracts, does that affect the scope of services work? Or like they pay for those 5 hours and that can be used however they or you see fit. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. So yes, absolutely. And see, that's the beautiful thing because you're never out of scope, right? So you're never, because the reason this happened was I had a flat rate project for a client. He wanted me to set up a webinar for him using Eventbrite, which is a software a lot of people use. And he told me that he had a PayPal account. He didn't have a PayPal account. So he wasn't lying to me. He just had no clue that he thought he had it, right? And so now all of a sudden I'm in this bind where I have to come up with, well, first of all, I have to think, well, how much should I charge him? Now I have to have another conversation about money, right? And then I have to decide how much is it worth to set up a PayPal account or just do it, which is what most people would do and not get paid. So by doing this, what my conversation with him would have been, oh my gosh, I thought you had a PayPal account set up. No problem, I'll take care of that, which is very different from all of this angst that I went through, right? Trying to figure it out. Now, yeah, and so people just they buy more time when they run out, and we just keep going. And when they run out of time, I wait until they reload the card, right? The card. So I'm always paid. Clients are happy to do that. They're happy to do that. Mm-hmm.
Great. And one other one in the chat from Michael. How do you keep track of your hours work, manually or some other way?
I use a free tool called Toggle, Toggl. Now it does have, you can use it on your phone, you can use it on your computer. It does have a button where you can click it on and the timer starts. For whatever reason, that causes me anxiety, so I don't do that. So I have a notebook next to me and I'll just write down the person's name when I started working and I'll just get, just get started. And then when I'm finished, I'll put note what I did in my time tracker and the amount of time it took. Now, I don't report back to clients, nor have they asked me, how did I use my time? So you don't have to worry about that, but I do have kind of a shorthand where I remember what I did to make sure that I've tracked all my time.
Maybe we'll go back to the ones in the Q&A. Janice is asking, do you recommend adding people you know in network events to email lists as well?
Yes, and ask their permission. Ask their permission. Would it be, I publish a newsletter once a month for entrepreneurs, and can I add you to my list? People don't like spam. They don't respect spam. They mostly ignore it. And so you want to ask their permission, 100%.
Okay, great. And one from Christian, is there a job board or other online marketplace for getting VA work?
There is, and I do not recommend using it. I recommend getting your own clients through referrals, because what happens is you go to these places. There's Upwork, there's Fiverr. They're going to pay you next to nothing. You're going to easily get scammed, and you're not going to be able to charge the amount that you're worth. So you really want to get your clients yourself through referrals. Yeah.
Okay, I think you've already covered April's question about what do you use to invoice clients, but there's a
Mhm.
follow-up there. Which system do you use for the debit card?
I use Stripe. Stripe is an online credit card processor. You can also use Square. You can use anything that works on a website. They are easy to configure and set up. And I had a link on my website so clients could just click it and buy the time right there. And the money just goes right into the bank. You can use PayPal too. I think there's a Venmo for business. You just want to make it as easy as possible for clients to pay you.
Um, Another one from Joannie. What advice can you give to me about returning to the VA world? I started in 2020 during the pandemic and was doing great for a startup, but some quick hiccups with mental health, poor pricing, etc. happened. I have felt shame and embarrassment about not doing my best in communicating with clients. I'm in a better space now and want to get back into the space and want to make amends with them and move differently this time around.
I would say, you know what? Pat yourself on the back, go, just go. People don't people are not tracking us as closely as we think they are. So if you have some, I call it chicken chatter, a rup up 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 in your head about what people are thinking, do what you can to just move past it and start fresh. Just move past it and start fresh. And put some systems in place to support you. So, a lot of people think that you need willpower and discipline and all that. What you really need is courage. Starting a business is not easy. It takes actual bravery. And, so create a system where you put the tasks you need to do on your calendar, or you set timers. So if you're someone who gets lost in, time when you're working on something, set a timer, but put systems in place so that they'll support you in communicating with your clients. Don't rely on your memory, okay? But you can do it. You can absolutely do it. So jump in. Yeah.
Okay. Do you recommend choosing a niche or starting off in general?
I recommend starting off in general. I'll tell you why. So a niche is you can so for example, let's say you want to work with wedding planners, that's a niche. You want to do a specific task for wedding planners, or you want to do that task only for wedding planners. So there's three different ways to niche. When you do that, if you know 1,000 wedding planners or even 200 and you want to tell them all about your business, that might work. But you don't want to put yourself in a place where you're looking for wedding planners. You want to look for people who need your help. It's a much easier way to get started. And if you want to niche down later, you can. Um, but it's not important. And being a generalist, now all the business books you're going to read are going to tell you you need a niche, you need a niche. You don't need a niche. I started out, I thought I'm going to work with startups. They did not turn out to be a good fit for me. The ones that I found didn't have money. They were working part-time. They were stay-at-home moms. And that wasn't a good fit for me. So I changed who I was looking for, and my business took off.
Okay. There's one in the chat about how do you file taxes as a VA? I think it's pretty straightforward, but yeah.
It's very simple. So so I'm not giving any tax advice, but you need to report all of your income, track all of your income that comes in. There's something called a Schedule C, which is where you itemize all of your expenses as a virtual assistant and put your how much you made and how much you spent on your business, and then you just pay taxes like everyone else. I do pay estimated taxes, so 4 times a year based on my prior year earnings. And that's something that you need to do with the IRS and your state. But you can easily look into it. There's no gray area. There's like a way to do it, and you just follow the instructions.
Okay, here's one from Kathy. Do you advise on the best way to set up LLCs, taxes, etc.?
We do that in my course. My husband is a certified public accountant, and he comes 4 times a year and gives advice on that. So you'll just have to decide. My business, I was a sole proprietor. I also didn't own a car. I had nothing to lose. If I were setting it up now, I would set up an LLC. It's very straightforward. It's very straightforward. I would also get what's known as an EIN, an employer identification number at the IRS. You can get that for free. It's a way to identify yourself without giving out your social security number. It's very straightforward. You can, I'm sure someone at SCORE, right, Bob, could probably help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Score would does a lot of that in terms of helping people set up LLCs and their businesses. So
Okay, good. Yeah, that's where I would go for that for sure.
Um, one from Janice, another one is, aside from asking our existing network and networking events, do you have other tips on where we can find clients?
You will find more than enough there. You will find more than enough there. I mean, there's different ways of telling everyone you know what you're doing. All right. So here's a silly example. Let's say I go into I used to live in New Canaan. I go into New Canaan, I'm at the dress shop, and the lady says, "Can I help you?" And I say, yes, I'm so excited. I just launched a website for a client and I'm here to buy a dress to celebrate. Now, a couple things can happen. She can say, "Oh, tell me about your business." Right? And then I say, "I'm a virtual assistant. I work with entrepreneurs, blah, blah, blah." Right? Or she can say nothing and I let it drop. So you can spread the word about your business all day long, as long, not jamming it down people's throats, but you could just talk about it, you know. But that is the way. I didn't make this up. It's called relationship marketing. There are books on it, but it's essentially staying in touch with the people you know over and over and establishing yourself. As a virtual assistant, and people will come to you. They will absolutely come to you. Okay.
And we have one last question from Paula. Is Zelle safe? I keep being told not to accept money.
I can't give you advice on that. I pay some of my people using Zelle. Um, you'd have to check with your bank, and you'd have to. I wouldn't do that actually, and I'll tell you why. Because you have to establish a relationship. You have to connect with them via your bank, and I would do something that is much easier for your clients, like PayPal or credit card.
I think, yeah, good advice. So I think that is all the questions we have. Just a reminder to everyone, the webinar has been recorded and will be available in the next day or so on our website under recorded webinars. And our next live webinar will be next Tuesday, July 29th at noon, when Ashwini Bhaskar will be presenting Introduction to Entrepreneurship and SCORE. And again, you can find more specifics on our website, fairfieldcounty.score.org. Again, if you want to take advantage of the free individual counseling, you can use that request a mentor link that I talked about. And we'd really urge you to fill out your evaluations that are being sent at the end of the webinar. They really do help us going forward. And on behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's live webinar. And a special thank you to Belinda for presenting today. It was great, lots of good information. Thank you, Belinda, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.